2021, the Land Act Professional Learning Network Fair Compensation Working Group conducted an exploratory research on communities' perspective on fair compensation and resettlement in Uganda and South Africa. One of the key findings as sharing of benefits or profits with affected communities should be a prerequisite for any investment. This video builds on that work by discussing these findings with other stakeholders in Uganda and South Africa, like the government, academia, civil society, to get their perspective on what fair compensation should be. Paul from South Africa highlights what his perspective of fair compensation is, while Dorothy from Uganda highlights the challenges with policies regarding land acquisition in Uganda.
Whenever there's a development, we should then fight for partnership in that development. We be given shares on that development so that we can sustain ourselves. You should then list all these things. Make sure whenever you relocate, all the demands are met. Other than that, it will be difficult for you to settle very well, because each and every time when you will be staying in whatever room or house they build you, you'll having some question to say, when are they paying me? Why are they not doing what they promised? So my suggestion is, let them, or the developers or whoever will be relocating you, do all the demands, or complete all the demands that you listed before you move, or before they can move you.
We say in Uganda that we have very good policies. The challenge that Uganda has with these policies is that they are on paper. We only pull them out when we need them, when they work for us. For example, the resettlement, the land acquisition issue. We only pull out Cap 227 when it works for us. Let us be honest about this. There's no systematic implementation of these policies. These policies are there. We know they exist. But they only work for us when we want what? When we want to implement something either forcefully or, let's be honest, that is what it is. Our policies are not built in the air. Our policies are actually a localization of international law. So if international law says that in order for someone to be displaced, in order for someone to be moved from one place to another, it has to be free, priorly informed, fairly compensated, and all that. That is where our policies come from. But now when we go into implementation, we start to remove ourselves from the international stipulations. We say, now this is Uganda. We do as Uganda does, because our first justification is we have a complicated land tenure system. We have Milo land, we have customary, we have what? That doesn't align with the international policies. So we are going to implement our policies according to the things of Uganda. But that's not right, because we are just shortchanging, we are actually violating the human rights of Ugandans.
Louis, a surveyor and an independent land consultant from Uganda who has also worked on several government projects regarding displacement, explains the process of land acquisition and what the government considers as fair compensation.
Farming doesn't follow these national guidelines and submit them to the Ministry of Lands for approval. Now, when the Ministry of Lands approves these reports, it means it's confirmation that the compensation that UNRA is going to do follows all the national guidelines. And since it's a government of Uganda funded project, it doesn't need to adhere to the international guidelines like the IFC social standards or the Equator principles and all the OECD principles. So now, government of the project, the report has been approved. Now we come to the affected communities. Of course, there are other stages there. We do engage people, we do get their opinions, but maybe let me redefine government's inclusion. if government of Uganda comes and tells you that a project is coming here and gets your opinions, maybe they don't necessarily implement everything, but for us that is what we consider inclusion. We came, we told you about the project, we told you exactly what's going to happen as per the Ugandan laws, read for you the Land Acquisition Act, the Land Act, the Constitution and everything it states. We listened to what you had to say, we took what we could take, we come back, particularly on government of Uganda projects. It is strictly cash compensation, even for the vulnerable people. The best that we can do is just do monitoring and evaluation to see what did the people use the money for. But it's believed that once we come to you after going through all those processes and approvals by the Ministry of Lands, and I come to you and I tell you that, Mr. Johnson, I'm going to pay you 100 million. 50 is for your land, 40 is for your building, 10 million is disturbance allowance for the inconvenience of the government coming to your property. And we explain to you how we came to this 100 million. That is legally what is fair. You know, prior to government getting this oil out of the ground, there's a requirement of support infrastructure in the form of roads. Now, a project which we would say has been successful are the critical oil roads. There are 10 of them in Hoima, Bulisa, and Masima. We started in 2017 with consultations. Just to go back, what is considered success in government's context is being able to pay 90% of the project affected persons. So for example, in Bulisa, there were about 3,500 people affected by this project. About the 159 kilometers of roads, we've affected 3,500 people. When the government managed to pay 3,000 people, and the contractors who are meant to build these roads managed to come, access, build these roads, because the roads have to be there before the pipeline is there. That is a project which, for us, we consider successful.
The resettlement and compensation processes are problematic, with issues such as lack of adequate consultation with communities, corruption, lack of standard valuation guidelines that are highlighted by both participants from South Africa and Uganda.
Now the government also, because it is full of crooks, they also want to put it extremely down, not also using the market value, because the chief government valuer sometimes doesn't even step the ground. They send the valuers at the district level, they go connive with the thieves within the district, the land thieves, because they are also part of government. Then eventually they come up with what they've called the market value. So they send that to the chief government valuer for advice. So the chief government valuer, as he has said, for example, at that level, they will approve basing on the report written by the crooks.
I still remember very well, my mother is the one who was affected by this asbestosis. And then it was just compensated, getting 10,000 compensation. And then I think that it is affected. They say there is a second degree and a first degree. You find that they were underpaid. And still now we're still staying there without our mother, and our mother just, they used only 12 round of compensation. No second one, up to now. No, during our time, I can't talk much about the government, because when this issue of asbestos started, there was a certain doctor called Dr. Felix Marianne, who came there, who organized the community of Mafefe, and then he organized us a show that the asbestos is very dangerous. He was trying to organize in the transporters Mafefe, go to the Johannesburg for the issue of the compensation. We know nothing about the government didn't participate in that. It's that lady who participated a lot about that. the issue of compensation and asbestosis.
We do not have standard valuation guidelines. Each district and each area sets their standards according to valuation standards of long ago. If you go into the policy and look at when we had valuation standards, it is outdated. So now, how do you expect someone in Gulu to get fair compensation as someone in Waise also gets fair compensation when you're marking the valuation of land in Gulu against the valuation of land in Waise? Are we together? So if we cannot, first of all, value land in a just manner, I'm moving away from the word fair, because normally fair is not fair to one party. But justice is justice. If we are going to value in a just manner, can we have valuation guidelines that will remove the suspicion of project affected persons? Because the project affected person will look at the same way that Idris has said, that these people have connived to steal my land from me because there's no clear documentation of where these values are coming from. So we need to speak to policy.
Without consultation, and even now when the compensation takes place, now no family now, they're still talking about the compensation. In other words, that thing is stopped now in Mafefe. Compensation is no longer there, and no one told us that it's still why it is stopped, whereas some of the people still there, not yet compensated. But they stopped without anybody told us, no consultation at all.
People don't trust the government. So because of that lack of trust in the government, all stages of land acquisition are marred by controversy, fraud. There's all sorts of little challenges that stem from the one fact that people don't have full trust in their government.
With the above mentioned issues, the recommendation proposed by the participants in order to have a smooth and just process that is inclusive and speaks to the realities on grounds where.
But I think the government must play a role, because our people are affected by this mines because of lack of awareness. They work in that mine because they were not aware that the asbestos is very dangerous. That is why the role of the government, according to me, which must be participated to make them awareness and come up with the mechanism of covering their nose in order not to be protected, not to inhale this asbestos. We will not consulted, because I know that according to my understanding, we should be consulted first, and the government tell us that about the asbestos is very dangerous, and then they have to tell us the steps before they are coming to assist us.
In terms of participation, we've heard about the top-down, the bottom-up, but I think one of the things that matters the most is to listen to the person who is affected. If a project-affected person is not satisfied, which is one of the components of reparation in terms of resettlement, displacement, and movement of persons. If a person is not satisfied, then your reparation, your compensation, your whatever you have done is not successful. Are we clear on that? For them, if they've compensated you, if they feel that is fair value, you know, you're done. But one, you're worse off. Two, you're not satisfied. You will constantly have that disagreement, that dissatisfaction, which will culminate into disagreements in the new area where you go or in your life. So let us look away from the fact that if I've compensated you, I feel it is fair, the government value has put his stamp on it, whether he has connived with our fellow slum dwellers or not. We cannot say that that is a done and deal, that is signed and delivered. as long as there still will arise those issues. And the best way to deal with those issues is to listen to the people the same way that this study did. What is it that you would want? Let's bring it to the table and discuss. Normally in the forums that Idris has talked about, there's normally a middle ground that is reached. And this middle ground is what helps projects to move along.
And you must know that how this asbestos damage you and get the expect that you qualified by how much for this compensation. But nobody told you they're just using the money to compensate you. And then you find that that is why I'm indicating about the 10,000. You can see that 10,000 is not a compensation. But whereas when you hear about the people, there's people who must be supposed to be consulted and compensated by more than 30,000 or what. But we know nothing because we didn't consult. Now I think they must be approached and tell us. As I say, they must be approached and tell us, and even the family members must know that this old lady or this old man is affected up to so far. It's going to be compensated up to so far. Because even if it's died, the family must remain on, they must carry on compensating them. They must never be included money because I've realized that some of the people who were staying in the housing of using asbestos. A fair compensation, I can say they must try to increase the money. The money must be enough, yes, more than 30,000 according to their degree. And then not only in the monetary form, because they found that they are still having the places in Molatelo where there are still asbestos. They must make the point that they come up with the mechanism where this asbestos must be absolutely closed. You see, where we can see that in future the asbestos will never be seen anymore.
Because as she said, there will always be resistance to development, but depending on how you approach it. USMID facilitated them with funds for building roads. He also knows this. And in certain areas of Gulu town, they told them, landowners, that we don't have money for compensation, but we have planned to have roads here. Either the money goes back to ministry, or you make sacrifices and you offer your own land without compensation in the interest of development. The developments went ahead. They gave up their land. They did not get a single coin in terms of payment because they saw a different picture, and that was because of a very different approach, an innovative approach, where I think USMID heavily engaged National Slum Dwellers Federation and other local groups to mobilize and convince the local community about the potential benefits, long-term benefits of the development.
Communities who are about to be resettled are not consulted. It becomes a challenge and it creates anxiety within communities. Basically because when communities have been in one place over a period of time, they develop coping strategies in terms of their livelihoods. They now know how to access some natural resources like water. They are now used to their places of plowing land that they develop vegetables and food for home consumption. The second outcry, it's more about where they are going to be resettled, because one naturally compare where they are towards where they are going to be settled. So it needs to be a place where they are brought into confidence that it is going to be better than where they are in terms of, again, access to resources, water, land, and many other issues that relates to their livelihoods. The other outcry that communities have when we talk about resettlement It's mainly livelihoods and issues that touches on family settlement. Communities are all about relationships, relationship with the neighbors, relationship with the entities in the community, like shops, like hospitals, like clinics, schools for the children. And these are very, very important matters that needs to be considered, but it's an outcry that creates a lot of this anxiety.
Using the forums as a platform of communication, dissemination of the information, and also at the same time consultating the community, because the forum brings together all stakeholders within that community. Therefore, the main takeaway is making sure that the forum is very active and let the government be using the forums that are there within the communities.
There is need for us to take an approach that members of the community will embrace the development of the government with compensation or not. Because whatever they do, it is not supposed to be compensated via the value of money only. Sometimes the long-term benefits that they are going to achieve matters a lot. 3, the technocrats or the people who are knowledgeable, those who are experienced, those who have undergone educations based on the land law, they should be able to enforce the community on the educating them or sensitizing them on the benefit of the land and how do you acquire in case your land has been taken out for the development. What procedure do you need instead of giving a mere information to our members?
As we conclude, just or fair compensation can be realized if processes of displacement, relocation, and compensation are transparent. The displacing parties are willing to properly consult the affected person, listen to their concerns, and build networks of trust.